Good afternoon. Well, I haven't done a video in a while, and I thought I'd do one. I've been out here for 2.5 years, a little over. This year, I got stuck in Arizona. And I'm stuck here because governors across the United States decided that they would use Fergusonian logic and soothsaying while telling us we should use science. So I thought, just for kicks and giggles, I'd use a little science. So what I've got here is a table. The table I have is from the Center for Disease Control, the CDC. I also have information about a study that was done at Stanford University. Now, this study was based on actual data, not made up nonsense, not what somebody was hoping would happen, not some kind of modeling, nothing like that. Actual empirical data. Now, statistical analysis is not that complicated. There's people who get a PhD in it, but they tend to complicate the simple. Basically, there's probability and there's statistics. It's not complicated at all. And we have a table here from the CDC which I found interesting. Now, the first thing I wanted to know was how many people die in the U.S. if we have no COVID, because we know COVID kills millions. That's what we were told. Millions and millions of people are going to die because it is a terrible virus. It even has 4 nucleic acid identifiers. Science, amazing stuff. Now, let's look at what we have. The CDC says this table I'm looking at is deaths involving coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, and pneumonia and influenza. I'm a cynic, so I guess they didn't get enough COVID deaths, so they added influenza and pneumonia. Now, the standard for the flu season every year, 10% of the people who get the flu, who contract the flu, will die. Most of them are over the age of 85. If we take 50% or more, we're at over the age of 65. That's why they say with that disease and pretty much every other disease, people over 65 are more vulnerable. That's pretty much normal. That's not special news. But if we look at this chart, it's COVID, pneumonia, and influenza, just the deaths. So the first thing I wanted to know was how many people in the United States die every year without COVID, including pneumonia and influenza, all causes of death. It turns out, I couldn't find any data any newer, so 2017 was the date I found. It's between 7,000 and 8,000 people a day. A day. So if it's 7,000 people a day, that's 49,000 people a week. 49,000 people every week in the United States die. That surprised me. But we do have 300 and some million people. So this chart goes from, wait a minute, what do I want to do? I want to make sure I get the thing. This is a weekly chart. And it begins on the 1st of February 2020, and the last date where they have data included in this chart is the 9th of May. If you want to find it, It's at cdc.gov, NCHS, NVSS. You can find it. On the 1st of February, everything's normal. So from birth to age 54, I'm going to do these numbers in my head because I'm not going to sit here with a calculator. It's approximately 7,000 people in a week. So 0 to through age 54, about 7,000 people died. Now remember, 49,000 die every week. That means from the age of 55 to infinity, however old the oldest person was, it's 42,000. About. So, I don't think, well, maybe, yeah, about 42,000. So, under age 55, 7,000. Over age 55, 42,000. That's a normal week. So, if we come forward now, we're talking about 42,000 people per week. We've got a little swag figure in there. You got a margin of error because of human error in reporting, reported twice, different kinds of things. So that's usually plus or minus a couple of percent points. Then you have a statistical difference. So a statistically significant difference. So if there's, let's see if I can find something here. Okay, so on February 1st, we'll just take 0 to 24. There's 1,094 people died between the ages of 0 and 24. If we come forward, 1 week later, it was 1,185. That's about 100 more people. That's not statistically significant. That's 10% approximately, but it's not statistically significant. It's just a fluctuation. It's normal noise. It's kind of bad to say that with people dying, but that's what it is. So when we look at these graphs, it is, you know how they told us we had to flatten the curve? Well, it's pretty flat. In fact, it's almost straight until we get to, there's an uptick on March the 7th. So the first week of March, there's an uptick which is statistically insignificant. It's less than 10%, except that the deaths of 85 and over seem to have gone up, but not much. And who is that? Oh, yeah, 75 to 84, it went up a little. We don't have any sort of increase that is even statistically significant until we get to, at the earliest, April the 4th. So they were instituting stay-at-home orders in March based on 0 empirical data from the United States. Let me say it again. There was no empirical data to support their decisions they made on the early March. There was none. Nothing. When they told us we were protecting people's lives, there was no data to suggest that we needed to start doing that. They had nothing from the U.S. Nothing. Yet, they told us we had to shelter in place, lock down, don't go out. Well, except for big grocery stores like Walmart apparently the virus was fine. There you go. Go there. And all these other places. So apparently part of their calculus was the old too big to fail. Because it looks like they implemented the reciprocal of that, and that's too small to succeed. When we come forward, there's a peak. On this chart, which again is the CDC, this is the official chart. This is the one our government publishes. This is what, if you're in college, you're going to get. If you're doing research, you'll get this. Now, there's a whole lot of data they have. And you can break this down by sex, by race, they've got all kinds of things you can do with this. Demographics, how much money you make, all these other kinds of things. The peak is on the 11th of April. And we have no change in deaths from 0 to 24. None. It is 1,007. In fact, we have no change between 0 and 54 years old. So everybody under age 55, at the peak of deaths from apparently corona, pneumonia, and any other disease they wanted to throw in. But this chart is, this is total deaths, by the way, that I'm looking at. So the total deaths from everything, everybody under 55 stayed the same. There is no statistical anomaly that would cause you to be concerned with anybody under the age of 55. So if the activities involve primarily people under the age of 55, they shouldn't have been affected. Now, there is a slight uptick between 55 and 65. So you could argue that people over the age of 50 should be given the option of whether they want to go home and hide and be a germaphobe, or whether they want to go out and take their chances. Up to them. After all, it is our body and we're allowed to do with it what we want. But over 65, the numbers start to go up. Now, it's statistically significant, it's empirically significant, that you would look at it then and say something is going on. But what's fascinating is the very next week, it's going down. And then it takes a nosedive. In fact, as of the most recent data, it's gone down so far that we're below our average. Let me say that again. Currently, fewer people are dying per week in the United States than is the norm before coronavirus. That too is not unusual if you have an event. So, basically, what the actual data says is open up, let people out. If you want to protect the people over age 85 or 65, do it. If you have a place you'd like them to go, where you know nobody has the virus, where everybody is whatever, healthy, go ahead and do it. But there is no way to stop a virus. None. At some point, you got to let it go. And the empirical data tells us we're finished. Now, will we have a peak? Probably. Will it be because the coronavirus is going to come back and haunt us? No. It'll be because we hid in our basements for 3 months, and a virus has a life cycle, and it's going to play out whether we hide in our basement or go shopping or do whatever we do. It's going to play out. And what the data does tell us is if you're under the age of 55 and you're worried, you're paranoid. So, that is what the actual empirical data tells us about what our politicians did in March And what every single one of us, most of us said, oh sure, we'll do exactly what you say because you're concerned with our health. Now when they say health, they mean vote. So I'm a cynic. And they were concerned that they would lose voters between March and November. And God knows you can't lose voters. Semper Fi.